We're back, part two of these training camp battles that we're watching because they're so intriguing and so valuable for fantasy success. The last video, we just got done talking about Charles Johnson versus Mike Wallace, two perimeter threats that are going to be at Teddy Bridgewater's disposal in an offense that features Adrian Peterson. Boy, that just sounds tantalizing. Today we're going to be moving on. Oh, and I am still joined by Nicholas Lippa, 91.3 FM WBNY's general manager here on the show. So, Devontae Freeman drafted last year. Mike Smith gone. Thomas Dimitroff, the team's general manager, his responsibilities have been lessened. Here we come, new offensive coordinator Kyle Shanahan, and really wants to employ that zone blocking scheme that his father used in Denver, as well as their little tag team couple years that they spent in Washington that helped Morris really churn out some productive fantasy years. So let's talk about this, Nick, all right? Who is it that we really want to target here? Because it seems that Devontae Freeman's atop the depth chart now, but it seems that Coleman's skill set might be a little bit better in this system. So tell me what you got going on here for these two guys.
Yeah, it's really about production and just having the volume to create that production, and that's Coleman in this scenario out of these two guys. While Freeman may end up number one on the depth chart, I see Coleman turning in that Alfred Morris type of running back kind of year if he's given the opportunity. It may not come right away, but I think eventually during the season it's just going to come. He's not necessarily the most gifted runner, but he's going to be able to do, I think, what Kyle Shanahan wants him to do, and that's what you're going to draft him for. I'm not too crazy about either of these backs because, honestly, they fit very specific styles. They're not somebody who's going to be an RB1.
Definitely.
But Coleman could achieve or imitate numbers like that by achieving some touchdowns like Morris did. The big question that comes into this is a guy like Alfred Morris really produced well when the Redskins were playing well and RG3 was playing really well. And since then, he's been good, but he hasn't been that like RB1 really that good.
Yeah, he's that steady RB2.
And that's I think what you're really going for with the Coleman here. And that's the upside for this year. So I would not touch Coleman until round 7, and Freeman I'm not crazy about at all.
Quick question. Do you see Devontae Freeman, Tevin Coleman as that Alfred Morris 1600 type of rookie season, or is that something that you see as a dynasty owner if you hold shares in this guy for a couple years?
You got to hope that if you're going to get that kind of year, he's going to get a crap ton of volume. That's not happening this year. He shouldn't come close to that this year. He'll be lucky if he gets 1,000 yards this year. Realistically, what I think you're going to see is somewhere in between 800 to 900 yards and then X amount of touchdowns. And that's really going to depend on how much volume he gets. And that could be anywhere from 5 touchdowns to 10 touchdowns, I think. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I'm not going to touch him because, honestly, early on, until they really show that they're going to use him, which I think they eventually will, he's going to be that flex kind of play that could develop into an RB2 later into the year. And dynasty-wise, that's a decent pick. But, again, just realize you're not getting the upside. You're getting more of a floor guy that's with Kyle Shanahan. And also realize 3 years from now, if this doesn't work out in Atlanta, Shanahan could be out of a job, and so could Coleman. Very good point. Also, it's worth noting, a couple of years ago, we watched Michael Turner flirt with RB1 value because he fell 2 feet forward in the end zone like 10 times or whatever it was. So, yeah, I could totally see Tevin Coleman providing you with that touchdown upside. Again, I'm not huge on his talent. I mean, he's okay, but, again, for the system that he will be running in, his skill set, what he has to offer you, can pay fantasy dividends. So definitely a training camp battle you guys are going to want to watch out there. The only argument I can see for Freeman is that he's better value. But again, I'm just not really blown away by Freeman's skill set. Again, another guy who averaged less than 4 yards per carry in his freshman season. Now, guys like Bell have done that, and they've gone on to be world beaters, but I just don't see it from Freeman. With Bell, we saw his patience. We saw the kind of explosive ability and catching ability, just a little bit of a watered-down version of it in his rookie campaign. I'm not seeing that type of potential from Freeman.
If there was a guy I'm going to own this year, it's probably going to be Coleman, but I'm not sure if I'm willing to pay that 7th round price tag for him. I'll be honest with you. I'd rather maybe have an Andre Williams, somebody like that who is in a better system. But I don't know. We'll see. I do like the Falcons' schedule this year. I'm still unsure there. Moving on. I know that you like Carlos Williams. He's a guy that you think you should watch behind LaShawn McCoy. As someone who's a Buffalo homer who definitely covers the Bills for the radio station, I know you're also writing some articles now online. Also, by the way, people, you can follow this guy at Nicholas Lip on Twitter. He's got great stuff for you. So talk about Carlos Williams and why you think he's worthy of a handcuff selection.
Here's the deal. Fred Jackson already has a hamstring injury and is out for 2 weeks. I can tell you right now, those things linger into the season. They always do. Those soft tissue injuries just nag at you, and Jackson's 34 years old. The real deal is who's going to get the backup carries. Bryce Brown fumbled multiple times in practices. Rex Ryan already come out and said we can't trust him. Mm-hmm. Carlos Williams is a guy they drafted in the 5th round. He played safety at Florida State for the first couple of years he was there, and then they put him to running back. When you watch this guy run, he has long strides. He's like a more violent version of LeGarrette Blount with a little bit of Rashard Jennings mixed in. He shows patience before his blockers, but he also shows violence once he starts to go downhill. And it's just this kind of mix where you see him start to get going, and you're like, oh my gosh, he's just going to keep going. Williams has to improve his pass catching ability, but regardless of that, he is going to be a guy in an offense, if McCoy gets injured, who's going to get a lot of touches. I don't see him going right to Freddie. I think Freddie's going to play a minimal role where he'll get 5 touches a game to 10 touches a game, just regardless of McCoy playing or anybody else. I think Williams is a guy who gets a lot of touches if McCoy gets hurt, and that's going to be in a Greg Roman offense that finishes top 10 rushing every year. If you're in a dynasty situation right now, you need to grab Carlos Williams somewhere in your draft because he's going to be more value than a lot of the running backs that are up there. We just talked about a Tevin Coleman. Carlos Williams is a guy who could really surprise a year or two from now. Yeah,
that's a great analysis. Thank you. Fred Jackson, 34, like you said, those hammy injuries, they definitely linger into the season. And LaShawn McCoy, while I think that he's going to put up production, I definitely think they will sprinkle in Carlos Williams. The Greg Roman definitely likes his runners to be of the north and south variety. I think McCoy is going to have to tailor-make his running style a little bit to this system. And that's really honestly why the Eagles traded him. He was just running a little too east and west, prancing around too much there. So McCoy's going to have to probably shift his game a little bit. And that's what I like from Carlos Williams, though. He's a very nice, shifty north-south runner. And we did an episode a couple weeks back, sleepers, busts, and cuffs. I definitely think that Carlos Williams is a cuff that you might want to keep an eye out for. Whether you draft him or not at the end of is fine, but definitely on your waiver wire, keep an eye out for Carlos Williams. This guy could surprise. Now, Nick, you were telling me that there was an offer made to Chris Johnson?
Yeah, Arizona's giving him a 1-year deal right now. Johnson's just talking to Arizona right now to make sure that he is going to make the team if he signs his contract. And if that's the case, you're probably going to see Chris Johnson at a point where he's going to be backing up Andre Ellington. And that could be a very, very sneaky late-round snag because Ellington's a guy who's had trouble staying healthy in the past, just his frame. If the Cardinals try to give him those workhorse numbers, that's not realistic for him. Johnson could be put in a very good situation as a late-round handcuff pick, even a guy who would come in as flex. One of the quotes that I just read from one of the reporters reporting on the situation was Chris Johnson's in the best shape of his life.
Really? You buy that report?
I don't know if I buy it completely, but I know that this is a guy who's looking to get it done for probably the last time in his career, and he's going to a really good situation.
A winning team.
And if you talk exactly, you take guys who are on winning teams because they provide opportunity. If you got to win games, you got to score points. To score points, it means there's going to be fantasy value on the table. And I'll tell you right now, beyond Michael Floyd having 3 of his fingers dislocated, Larry Fitzgerald being a little bit older, and then Josh Brown, I'm telling you right now, running back situation in Arizona, somebody's got to score points. that could be just a sneaky waiver wire / late round pickup, just like your guy you were talking about before too. Maybe a guy like Ray Rice finds a home somewhere soon.
Definitely, and that's someone that I'm keeping because if Dallas picks up the phone and I use my last round pick on Ray Rice, that I think you'll immediately get RB2 production. But in terms of Chris Johnson, definitely he has shown consistently throughout his career. I think he's had 1,000 yards every season, but that season in New York. So he's definitely a runner with not a lot of tread, but something there, and he's going to provide extra value in a PPR. Plus, I'm just not sold on David Johnson. He's basically another Andre Ellington. They didn't really get a compliment, a bigger bruiser type of guy. So, yeah, I think Chris Johnson, if signed, someone you want to watch out for. So we're going to play a little game of buy or sell here in the last couple minutes. So, Nick, I'm going to run down a couple guys. Are you buying or selling Joseph Randle to be healthy all year and have 200-plus carries in that system?
If I'm taking him mid to late fourth round, I'm buying mainly because whoever is going to be atop of the depth chart in Dallas is going to get volume. It doesn't matter who's there. Somebody's getting the volume this year. However, this comes with a warning. Last year we had this same thing happen in Denver. We said whoever's atop the depth chart is going to get a lot of work, and we felt good about Monty Ball, that unknown. It was sexy. He was talented. He was this guy coming into this offense, and then he was one of the biggest busts, if not the biggest bust, because you took him in the first round. The thing with Randall is, yes, it's tantalizing, the idea of somebody coming into this offense. Do not expect the DeMarco Murray numbers, but expect somewhere around 1,200 yards rushing, probably 8 to 10 touchdowns. I think that's very realistic. That's a fourth-round pick because, again, there's the unknown. He could just as well get injured the first week and lose his job. It happened to Monty Ball last year. Or ball security. That came out in Dallas. They want him to be more secure with the ball. If a team like that can't trust you with the ball, you're not going to have the job for long. So Randall is worth a mid to late fourth-round pick and beyond, in my opinion. Don't go reaching for him. I will gladly take a Todd Gurley over Joseph Randall at this point.
Does Lance Dunbar hold any PPR value?
If Randall gets injured or is out, anybody who is starting, Ronnie Hillman provided value for you as a Broncos owner of anybody on that team. For any running back, Hillman did last year as somebody got injured. It doesn't matter who is at the top of the depth chart on this Cowboys team. This offense is going to produce points. They will be good. That's a decent handcuff. It's not somebody I'm going crazy about drafting, though, anywhere nearby, because he's not somebody who's going to win you a week.
Gotcha. Are you buying or selling the report from the Tampa Tribune? Lovie Smith came out and said that Doug Martin will be the starter week 1. What kind of fantasy stock are you willing to invest in a guy who it seems like his rookie year was kind of a long time ago, just kind of like this pipe dream that just is not coming back? Are you buying Doug Martin as a starter?
Doug Martin is not a fantasy starter. He shouldn't be taken as a fantasy starter. You should sell any stock you thought you had in him. He had one game inflate his entire career, that 250-yard-plus performance with 4 touchdowns against the Raiders. Not worth it a dime. Charlie Sims is worth a better bet. Doug Martin's one of those guys you're going to draft, and you're going to regret it, just like people who drafted Trent Richardson last year. They took him in the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th round in some leagues, and they still regretted it if you took him really late. He's just not worth the pickup. Even in PPR, Trent Richardson was like a flex play at best. He's like that guy you take and you're just like, I guess I could start him because everybody got injured on my team. He's not a guy that you want to start. And really the rule should be, if you never see yourself starting him, don't draft him. Yeah. Might as well call Doug Martin the Ben Jarvis Green Ellis, really, of this draft. He's just a guy you don't want to start.
Basically. Plus they've got Mike James, Bobby Rainey, Chris Sims on that roster. There seems to be a lot of potential guys. When Doug Martin went down in 2013, I don't know if anybody remembers the Bobby Rainey game against the Seahawks where he just kind of exploded for 20 points. So, again, it could be anybody there.
And Mike James did it before
and Mike
Rainey
James
as well.
did it. Exactly. So I'm just not sure where if you're telling me Doug Martin for a round 10 draft pick, all right, maybe I'll take the risk. But anything higher than that, I got to agree, I can't do it. So this is our training camp watch video. We're going to be coming out with another one next week once the first round of preseason games are on. thank you, Nick, for joining us on the show. You're always welcome, and it's always a pleasure to hear what you have to say. You bring a lot to the table, and I'm sure the viewers love what you have to say, so thank you. Again, you can follow him at Nicholas Lippa. I'm at Sports Debate Tom. This was High Stakes Sports Debates, Fantasy First. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you here next time. Don't miss out, or you'll be sorry.
High Stakes Sports Debates.